Well, welcome, Trevor.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. This is the first, second official episode of this podcast we've titled Noahgenda.
Love it.
Shout out to Taylor Mason, buddy of ours, for coming up with the title. But I'm very excited for you to be here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
For those of
for
that,
Noahgenda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Trevor and I started as work colleagues, right? We were introduced by an old client, Jose and Shane, and then became friends. And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's history.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because I met Jose and Shane at an open house. They came in, chit-chatted, walked outside, sat in their car, talked, and I could see them. And then they came back in. I was like, all right, they like me.
Yeah,
they want to work together. And then through the process, they're like, hey, would you work with us as buyers? Of course, it's what I do. Blah blah blah. Have you talked to a lender? They're like, yeah, we've got a guy. They kind of had an agent. They weren't really like enjoying, and so when they were getting rid of their agent, I figured, they can get rid of their lender. We can slide in one of my preferred lender partners, and they were like, he stays. We like him, and I was like, okay. And I knew nothing about you.
Yeah.
They teed up an intro. You talked a good talk. I didn't realize you were just right in the business. You just kind of started.
Yeah.
And it's classic fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Dude, you knew what you were doing. You knew enough. You were able to impress me with what you were saying. I tend to ask probably a little bit harder questions than some people are very direct. But I was like, okay, all right, it's good enough. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Been doing business
since then.
Yeah.
And there was, so right when we were introduced, and I was like, hey, let's grab a coffee so we can get to know each other. And I was pretty new. So I was, looking for every relationship in a new industry. Mm-hmm. And we had a coffee set, and you no-showed at the coffee.
Did I no-show you?
Yeah. And then you felt terrible about it.
Because that's rare. That's why I acted surprised.
Because I think I had called, maybe it was Leah at the time. I don't know. It was April or Leah. Yeah. And I'd called, and she was like, I'm so sorry. And then you called, and you're like, I'm really sorry. I forgot XYZ, and then we had lunch. Remember we had lunch?
We had lunch at Hillstone.
We did indeed have lunch at Hillstone. Yeah, you were like,
I was like, lunch
I
is
feel
on me.
bad.
Yep.
And I was like, all right. And it was a great lunch.
We just both finger licking. We're like,
yep, exactly. Yeah. That was the genesis of our relationship.
Well, and then you realize from then on, Hillstone's my jam.
That's the jam, man. Every
Make me happy. It's just Hillstone, man.
It's easy.
Yeah, it is. I'm a creature of habit and routine.
I love it. Well, for those of you that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I won my 6th grade spelling bee. I didn't actually. I don't know why I just came up with that. Let's see. So, residential real estate agent. Been in the business for over 12 years, coming up on 13, I guess. And have 4 kids, beautiful wife. Love what I do, both at work and at home. I'm a network-based guy, so really a vast majority of my business that I procure comes from friends, family, past clients, referrals. And that's really how I like conducting business. It's always what I like about the real estate business is the warmth, is the exchange. It's like I'm helping people during some of the, buying and selling a home is very stressful. It's also a huge deal. I mean, it's the biggest. If you're selling it, you're selling oftentimes your biggest financial asset. And when you're buying it, you're acquiring your biggest financial, unless you're paying cash, your biggest debt. And so it's super important to, for me to be working with people I love, to be working with people that we already have a mutual respect together and help them guide through the process. So, just been doing real estate for a long time, did a handful of things before that. And once I kind of sunk my teeth into real estate, there was no going back. It was also my first step into kind of like entrepreneurialism. Yeah. I'd always had that thought in my mind. And I tell people this often, if you have a thought in your mind that I can do something, I feel like if I just am the one making the decisions and the one doing it, that it's going to turn out well. I feel like I can do that. Yeah. That's your entrepreneurial bug. And it's something that should be taken seriously. And your business and my business happen to be businesses where you can be entrepreneurial, but within kind of a set box, right? Yep. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in lending. I don't have to reinvent the wheel in real estate, but like what we do is we take the wheel and we hone it and we shape it and we spray paint it and we, you know, chrome dip it and whatever. Yep. Like we make it our own, and we get to be entrepreneurial, but within the confines of a particular industry. So it was my first step into entrepreneurialism, and it really was that kind of self-actualization, you know, like a self-realization. Yeah. Okay, I thought it and I'm doing it. And now, you know, it's like it took me 6 months to get my first deal. But then once I got my first deal, they just kind of kept rolling. And it was like, wow, now I'm keeping a roof over my head. And not only that, like I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. And I'm kind of do some stuff that I want to do. And like, I don't have to like, you know, I'm not losing sleep at night wondering where the money's going to come from. And so I think our businesses, it's, you know, it's really easy to be defeated in it, but it's also once the momentum starts going and you figure out your little hack, your little secret that cracks the door open, like I think you can just really get running and go if you have that mindset of like, if I do it the way I want to do it and the way I think people want to receive what I'm doing, oftentimes it plays out really, really well.
It's funny you say that because I remember when I got started, when I decided to go into lending, there were a couple things. That was one of the big things for me was I thought the more control I have over my professional trajectory here, I feel like the better. And that started from where I started initially being, you know, in somebody's branch, brand new guy, finding my own business to then saying, is there a way I can exercise more control over this? And then our industry, that would be, okay, at some point you get your own branch, right? Now you've got full P&L responsibility. And it's a way, like you said, you've got some guardrails set up, right? Mm-hmm. There's some protection there by your brokerage or by your mortgage bank or whomever. But really at the end of the day, it's all about the business that you build. And there's also, I think, a lot that is fulfilling about that, right? Knowing at the end of the day, like, this is what I'm going to make it, you know? Now, you had mentioned real estate was kind of your first foray into that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about and talk to you about was you have a very unique background, I would say, as it relates to real estate. A lot of agents I know, families were in real estate or they grew up around it, and that's how they ended up there. But in your case, you had a very unique educational background. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, transitioning from being a narco king in Miami to real estate. Was it, you know, you think there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, it's just, you know, just buying and selling.
Yeah, it's just, you know, moving weight, you know. No, my background, education-wise, I have a law degree, so graduated from law school. And really, I went into law school, it was one of those things that, you know, my dad's a lawyer. My sister was, when I was graduating from undergrad, my sister was entering her third year of law school. It was kind of like, this is what the family does, right?
Yeah.
I looked at some other stuff. I was like, hey, you know, maybe I'll do an MBA. Because I knew that I didn't necessarily want to practice law, but it was kind of the thing to do.
Yeah.
So I looked into MBAs and, you know, it was like, well, if I eventually want to, there's night programs or executive programs. Right. Law school was like, you can't have a job. No. Like literally it, like part of the student agreement, it's like you can't work more than X hours a week outside of law school because they just know you'd be setting yourself up for failure. And so I was like, listen, I'll go get the degree that is more demanding from a time standpoint right now, and then maybe go get an MBA. And so went to law school with the idea that I didn't want to practice. Yep. I knew it was something that I wanted to have. I figured the degree would serve me well in everything I did. Went into law school, and as any professional program tends to do, it kind of turns you. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I don't want to practice law. And then I'm like, I want to be a lawyer. I don't know, you know? And then by my third year, it's really like the entire process of law school. It's a 3-year process. And the entire process is designed to like get you ingrained into going to a law firm, right? So you're a summer associate at a law firm and all that sort. So I did all the stuff. I played all the games. Yeah. And by my third year, I found myself interviewing at law firms and had a job offer that I accepted at a big law firm to do complex defense work, like, you know, plane crashes. This law firm defends the engine manufacturer or whatever they think was the cause of it. And then I found myself like midway through my third year, like depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, literally like couldn't pull myself out of bed, like wasn't getting my schoolwork done. Yeah. And then I kind of had a grand awakening, and that was the first time. Now I've coined such a thing as like a soul revolt. Like my soul was like holding me down. It was screaming at me. I couldn't hear it because all of the, above surface noise was like commanding my move. Nope, you went to law school and this is the thing. You accepted a job, so you're going to go take the bar. You're going to be a lawyer. It's going to be great.
You're really excited.
You're really excited.
You really are.
Although you're very depressed. And so it was literally what I realized is that my soul was screaming at me, dude, you're gonna hate this.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of derailed me. And then I had an awakening. I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to practice law. So called that firm. Yeah. Said thank you, but I'm not taking the job. In fact, I'm not going to practice law. They're like, thanks for wasting our time. Godspeed. No, they were super gracious, very nice about it. But so then, I came out of law school, law degree, shopping around for a job with a professional degree. People are like, dude, okay, you're educated.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to do with you.
Yeah.
And so thankfully I when I graduated from law school, my, it was going to be my future and then former father-in-law. So, father-in-law from my first marriage, he was developing high-rise condos in Rocky Point, Mexico. And he's like, hey, I know you don't want to practice law. Why don't you come down? You can be my right-hand man. I'll teach you what, everything I know about developing, and you can be my sales manager, and let's go. And so went down there for about a year, and it was like awesome.
Yeah.
Made a bunch of money, and then the market went and just literally, it was Great Recession. And so what people were doing here is they were taking money from their homes, taking a big bag of equity down to Mexico and just like paying cash for condos. That stopped.
Yeah.
And so sold the development. My father-in-law sold the development to his Mexican partners and tied that up, did a couple of other things, I was a commercial insurance broker for a while.
Yeah.
And then I worked for a management consulting firm. And then all of it was just kind of like not getting my footing, right? I was learning everywhere I went, but like nothing was like, I looked around, it's like, I don't want to be you when I grow up, or like, it doesn't feel right. Or like, I'm not really thriving. I'm trying. I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I got laid off from the management consulting firm. I saw the writing on the wall like 3 weeks before. I went home and told my first wife, I was like, I don't think I'm long for this company. I think there's some stuff coming.
Yeah.
And then it was like a reduction of force of about a third of the workforce, right? And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go find a job. And thank goodness my ex-wife, who I'm still friends with to this day, she was like, don't go work for someone else again. Like, you've always talked about starting a business, go start something. So I didn't know what to start. And so I'd worked for a while on trying to start a craft beer store, like a bottle shop and tap room. Like, they were big in Portland at the time, but down here they just weren't. People couldn't wrap their minds around it. I had a pro forma built. I had a financial model. I was trying to like shop it. I needed $250,000 to get going. And everyone's like, seems cool. I'm just not. I just don't know.
Well, there was nothing like that out here.
There was nothing like that. So it was hard to conceptualize. It was like, I was like, think about Postino, but for beer. And people were like, cool.
Okay.
Oh, here's $250,000. Go. Right? Unproven entity. Go do it.
Oh, you've done this before in Portland or something?
Yeah.
No, I've never done it before.
No, but I like beer. Right. I'm really good at that. So yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, I didn't want to be the dude that was just constantly like, I'm still starting, trying to start my business, and 5 years later not have anything going. And I was at lunch with my dad one day, and he was like, hey, when you were right before you were going down to Mexico, you were getting your real estate license. Like, whatever happened to that? Well, I didn't need a license in Mexico. Yeah. So I was like, I just stopped. I just went down there. And he's like, well, listen, and he's a lawyer. He's like, my partners and I are all going to be buying and selling homes in the next 10 years. Like, why don't you think about getting your license and, go from there? And I think my dad was just like, do something, right? Yeah. Like, get something going. I don't think he thought there would be like a full-time gig, but it
was going to be your career.
Yeah,
at that
but
time.
I really started analyzing it, and I looked at commercial real estate as well, and it was like, that reminds me too much of commercial insurance sales, where it was like smiling and dialing, trying to wedge your way into the C-suite and get someone's ear and hopefully dislodge their current relationship. And I was like, I don't really like that feel. Yeah. Whereas, my dad's point was like, with residential real estate, it combines like all your skill set.
Yeah.
One, your personality, like
Yep.
you love making relationships with people and like interacting with people, which I love doing that. He's like, 2, from marketing and your background at the management consulting firm. And 3, your law degree, like you get to use that in contract negotiations and whatnot. And so I thought long and hard about it and was like, all right, I'm going to do that. So I went and got my license. And I think my dad was thinking like, part-time, get a couple deals, whatever. And I just dove in. And so, I just started working. And like I mentioned earlier, for the first 6 months, no deals. And then I got my first, and it just like the dominoes fell. And like, I haven't looked back.
Yeah. Well, momentum begets momentum in our industry, right?
Totally.
You get one done, that person refers you to somebody else, that person refers you to somebody else. Yep. And especially if you're building the business the way you have, which is through your sphere and through your relationships, like once it starts going, like there is an inherent momentum there.
Yeah.
That first one is almost the hardest.
It is.
Because somebody's got to trust you who knows that if they're in your sphere, they know you're new.
Yeah, and thank goodness they weren't in my sphere.
So there you go.
They didn't even know. But it's same thing like I was saying about you earlier.
Yeah.
I talked the talk. Like it was literally we used to sit at Coldwell Banker. It was called floor time.
Yeah.
Like you could sign up for 3 3-hour slots a month or whatever. And when the phone rang at the main office, at the Coldwell Banker office I was at, the receptionist put it to you. And it was a sign call. And it was some dude like, hey, I want to look at this house.
Yeah.
And I knew the rules, like, no, pre-qual them first and da-da-da-da. But I was like, all right, when do you want to go? And so I went, and the dude was super cool. Like, we hit it off. He was a great guy. Was able to purchase without selling his house.
Yeah.
And so he purchased. And then, like, a month later, he and I were in touch, and he's like, hey, I'm going to sell. Do you want to list my house? So he was my first purchase and first sale.
That's
amazing. And I've told him that. And then like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I helped him sell the house that I helped him buy. My first buy side, I ended up listing it 3 or 4 years later.
That's amazing.
And it was so cool when I was telling the story. And it happened to be because I was following up with him, right? Doing our routines of making sure we're staying in touch with people. I hadn't talked to him in a while. I called him. He goes, man, I thought about you recently. He goes, we're moving to Seattle. He goes, I'm doing a corporate relo, and unfortunately, they're making me use the relo company.
Yeah.
And I wanted to use you, but I can't. I go, well, did you sign any paperwork yet? Like, do you have an agent? No, we've kind of been talking to one. I go, well, listen, like anyone, if they meet minimum standards, can qualify for relo companies. I qualify for all of them. Yeah. So if you call your relo company, you say, hey, I want to use my guy, they'll send me paperwork, I'll fill it out, and we'll be good to go. He's like, really? It's like, yeah. And so we did. And, walking into his house, I was like, dude, did you know this is my first sale? He goes, I think you said something about, I go, yeah, this was my first sale.
Yeah.
And you were my first listing.
Yeah.
Like you get, like, it's a special relationship. But to your point, like the meatball starts rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
Like when you do it right.
Yeah.
Eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Meatballs rolling down the hill. Justin loves like shit. I'm like just like total dad jokes all day, right? Dad sayings all day. Meatballs and elephants. That's what we talk about. Anyways, the meatballs start rolling down the hill with the real estate stuff, but like, you know it too. Like, it's the old Zig Ziglar. You ever see that guy? You know who that is? The old like motivational speaker.
Yeah, he's like pre-Tony Robbins almost. Like the original motivational guy.
Yes, the original Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins before Tony Robbins.
Right.
Tony Robbins. But he has this thing where he's like on stage and he's got a well pump. And he's sitting there talking about how like sales is like priming the pump and da-da-da-da. And he's talking and pumping and pumping, and water starts to flow. And then he stops. And it goes all the way down the bottom. He goes, and you have to start over again. So like if you let your foot off of the gas, then it stops. If you, especially in a relational business, like if you start coming at it from the incorrect angle, which it's hard not to be focused on just the final outcome for yourself in this business. Final outcome is you get a check, I get a check.
Right.
Final outcome is when people close, we get paid. Right. So if you start putting that in front of, hey, I need to get paid, you start putting that in front of the process, or you start putting that in front of the people that you're helping, they're going to smell it.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden that momentum, that like, hey, my guy Noah treated me really well, you need to talk to him. My guy Trevor, if you're thinking about real estate, he's the only guy, he treated us really well. Like that narrative can start to change. And if that narrative changes, it's really hard to get it back. And so, especially in a relational business, you have to make sure that your motives are pure. And sometimes you got to check yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a lean month. I really could. This person wants to buy or sell. Like, you have to sit down and you have to make sure that like your self-serving motives are out of the way. And if you can keep that going and you can keep that purity of your approach, then the good stuff keeps coming.
Yep.
The second some impurity comes in, the machine stops firing correctly, and it just kind of, before you know it, it can just like disappear.
That's it, right? Like to your point, I've heard you tell plenty of clients like, oh, we went and saw this house. This isn't the right house for you. There's too many problems. This isn't what you're looking for. It's too much of a compromise, right? Because it's not what they're looking for. And I've heard you tell clients that, or I've talked to you, hey, how'd it go? How'd the showing go? And you're like, it's just not the right place.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And to your point, if it was, I just really got to get something closed. And I think there, unfortunately, are people on both sides of our business who operate that way.
Yep.
That person feels it during the transaction. And after the transaction, that person's not going to refer that agent.
No.
Never.
No.
Right?
And quite frankly, they're more inclined to like not only not refer, but maybe add some negative fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
Like, talk to the friend who referred them and go, dude, actually, it was a disaster.
Yeah,
like,
he told me to ignore all these problems and just move forward and don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Just seem disinterested or whatever. And like, there's a fine line too in our business with growth.
Yeah.
And still maintaining the level of impact and interest with what's going on with your clients, right?
Yeah.
Like, in order for you and I to grow, in order for real estate agents to grow, in order for lenders to grow, you have to start internally scaling and you have to start giving away some of the stuff that you used to do. And so the fine line for me is I've grown, and as I've grown and grown in staff and restricted staff and tinkered and played and toyed, the most important thing is for me to be able to tell my clients, not only tell them in the beginning and get them to understand that the process is going to be different, but then execute and have them realize, okay, the process was different, but either I didn't lose anything or it was better.
Yeah.
And my goal when I leverage and scale, when I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be the one showing you the houses. I mean, most of my clients, I don't.
Yeah.
If it's close in the area, oftentimes I will. If I have time, like, I'm going to get out at least once or twice and just, make sure that they're seeing me and feeling me. But through the rest of the process, they're seeing me and feeling me in different ways. And when I take away some of the stuff that a lot of agents be like, dude, showing homes is like a super important time for you to like, show your client how good you are and whatever.
Yeah.
And to have the jokes and all the stuff that comes along with showing, it's fun. Like I actually enjoy being out with people.
That's fun.
It's fun. It's like I get to look at homes and whatever, but like it's not my highest and best use.
Yeah.
Opening a door and be like, you like it?
Right.
Or open a door and be like, hey, it's got termites. Or open a door and be like, roof looks old, AC looks old. You can train someone to do that.
Yeah.
Where I want to be is in a space of strategy.
Yeah.
I want to take away all of the tasks and all the stuff in my day-to-day life that brings me back down into like tactical, or brings me back down in a world where I'm kind of like a taskmaster. Tasks away. I want to be in strategy. I want to be able to speak with my clients about from the first conversation. I want to be strategic, and I want them to recognize that the value that I deliver, the law degree, all the stuff of my years of experience, all of that value is here. It's not here. It's not opening the door.
No.
It's in presenting you with a process that's going to make you win whatever game it is that you're playing.
Yeah.
And it's unlocking what's the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
What's your definition of a victory, and how do we get there? It's building a strategy and then backfilling it with the tactics that's going to get them to the victory, and managing that strategy and making sure that I have time to be strategic with my clients. I want my clients to feel like I'm the only one there.
Yeah.
Right? Or that they're the only ones.
Yeah.
Like I want them to feel like when they call, they have me, they have my brain. And if I'm out in the field or I'm in the car and I'm going from showing to showing, or I'm jumping and I'm just like, I've got too much going on, the one thing that the human mind, when you're overwhelmed, we go lowest common denominator. What's the task? I'm going to get in my email. I'm going to clear out emails. You go to task land, you get out of strategy land because you feel like you have all this stuff that you have to do. So when I eliminate all of that stuff, I can be right here with clients and really helping them, really devoting my energy and my brain power to providing them with a better experience, better negotiations, a better ending for them, whether it's selling or buying. And so, that the relational business, the evolution of the relational business, it's just super important to make sure that clients are being served first, but you're being served as well. Like, how can I grow my business if I have a 100% capacity, and I'm at 100% capacity, or I'm at 110.
Yeah.
I used to tell this to JC, my former assistant, be like, hey, you and I are operating at like 110.
Yeah.
I want to be at like 80.
Yeah.
I want to be busy. I want to be productive. I want to be comfortable, and I want to leave capacity to ideate.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, one of my executive coaches, his saying, it's Zanzibar, his saying, one of his many sayings, is that the perfect space for an entrepreneur is in a space of 100% creativity.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate the tasks in front of you and be able to ideate and create, build a better mousetrap, build a better meatball, eat a better elephant, whatever it is, then you're in a really good spot. But you can't do any of that if you've buried yourself in the minutia and the low level tasks that we all have to do in order to perform our jobs. Not just you, not just me as a lender and a real estate agent, but anyone.
Yeah. And now, was that something you came to early? Like when you were a new agent, was this on your mind, or was this as your business grew? And, to your point, you went right from Coldwell to North & Co., right?
Yep.
And I imagine that move was strategic and probably part of, hey, realizing you need some extra guidance or some extra help to take your production and your career and what you're building to the next level.
Totally.
So it wasn't up front. Like if you're a new agent out there, it might be like, I really have to focus on these steps to start building this business, but it changes over time, right?
It does. It changes over time, and it changes pretty quickly, right? They're kind of, there's strata in residential real estate where you're like, hey, if you're doing like 20 deals a year, if you're hitting that level where you're doing about 20 transactions and you don't have a point of leverage, like good luck getting to 25.
Oh yeah.
Good luck getting to 30.
Yep.
Like you're going to kill yourself, right?
Yeah.
So when I first started, that first 6 months, I had a little bit of, I had some desperation.
Yeah.
Right. The first 6 months, it was my first wife. She was a lawyer. I'd helped support her through school. Like she was a year behind me. She went and did a master's program after me. Like we helped each other out. Like I helped support her through those. Then when she came back and became a baby attorney, I got laid off. I was working on my business thing, but I was like, my first 6 months in real estate, the whole focus was, I have to keep this woman engaged. Like, I have to show that I'm not just laying around the house.
Right.
Right. I mean, I was going in the Coldwell office every day. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. But I was working. Right. I was trying. There were days where like I could literally feel my face getting red. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And one day I called my dad. Yeah. Right? I think my dad called me, hey, how's it going? I was like, actually, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I can feel my face getting red.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work. I don't know what I'm doing. And he goes, go home. I'm like, what? He goes, part of the beauty of like why you entered this business is so that you could have some flexibility to do what you want. You're not being productive. You're frustrated. Go home. Go for a hike. Go for a walk. Do something. And so like I've taken that. And sometimes if I'm frustrated at work, I'm like, okay, bye-bye. I'm gonna go take.
That's a wrap.
Well, now, I mean, literally, this happened a couple months ago. I'm like, I'm gonna take my sons to the park.
Yeah.
And I left. I showed up. Beth's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Pack the boys. I'm going to the park." I'm frustrated. But that desperation of like trying to keep my wife, engaged, right?
Yeah.
And then my first deal actually led to the divorce conversation for my first marriage. Again, my first 6 months working hard, not knowing what I'm doing, but I'm doing it, right? Right. Get that guy, sign call, go out, get him under contract. Like, it gets announced at our brokerage meeting. I mean, people are like, throwing flowers.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, they see the little dude working,
New guy doesn't know anything.
He doesn't know anything. He's working though. He's here every day. He's drinking our coffee. So printing things. I don't know what he's doing. Everyone, I mean, I was getting calls from people, dude, congratulations. I was set, it was a big deal. And I was set to bring like 12, 13 grand to the household, right?
Yeah. In one chunk.
In one chunk.
From zero in 6 months.
From nothing.
Yeah.
And so it got to like, I was having a conversation with my wife at the time. And I was like, hey, like, everyone's excited. Like, everyone is like, I'm getting backslapped. I'm getting calls. Like, everyone's excited but you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm bringing in like $12,000, $13,000 to the household. Like, you stand to benefit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been working so hard to make sure that you're not, so that you don't get bitter.
Right.
And she started crying. She's like, I am bitter. And I was like, oh shit.
shit.
So it was like sum of all fears. Like, I've been working so hard to keep her happy and engaged. And then boom, my first deal, it's like, she's not happy.
Yeah.
And then we started going to counseling, and I was like, oh, I'm not happy. Like, this is a marriage that neither of us are really happy in. And so we separated pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Against our counselor's advice, but then we were like, hey, let's give it a couple months. Let's circle back. And like, so during that time, I was like, well, dude, I got my first deal, which led to the discussion about divorce. My desperation leading up to that was like, I need to get a deal to keep this woman engaged.
Yeah.
And once I got the deal and realized she's going to disengage, or that I'm disengaging, or mutually, it's like this marriage isn't what it should be. Now the desperation kicked into, I have to produce because I have to like feed myself.
Yeah.
Right. If we get divorced, we didn't have a pot to piss in at the time. Like, she had her income, but like, you know, had some school debt, and we didn't own a house. We did own a house, but it was like, we had a little bit of equity. Let's pay off a little bit of debt. And then that's it. But from there, it's like, I got to keep producing. So to that new agent, the desperation, especially like if you're a new agent, it's like, oh, I've got a spouse making a bunch of money. I don't really need to do this. Different. Sometimes without that fire, that forced flame, it's hard to motivate yourself to like go into the office and be like, what should I be doing? Yeah. What can I be doing to stay in touch with people? What can I be doing to provide value? Like, if you don't have that necessity, that forced flame, sometimes it's hard to get going. I was forged in flame. Like, I needed to produce to try to keep my wife happy. And now then I realize she's not happy. Now I need to produce for myself. And so like literally for the first 3 or 4 years, there was no leverage. Like, I take that back. From transaction number 1, I used a transaction manager. Yeah. Because I realized like, I don't know how to do the paperwork, and I don't want to waste a bunch of time doing it. I want an expert helping me and showing me. Yeah. And then I was like, well, now that they've shown me, I'm like, I see the value in it. So I'm just going to keep paying. And so that was my first point of leverage, transaction 1. I've never looked back in that regard, but like in the beginning, you have to do everything. Yes. You don't have any money. Right. So you can't pay other people to do it. Nope. But then once you get your first little bag of money, you get a little security, you got to pull that first point of leverage, so that like, you know, if you're aspirationally thinking that you're, okay, I want to make, you know, $100,000 this year. Well, what's your hourly rate on $100,000? What's 100,000 divided by 2,000? 50. So $50 an hour. So if you take 2,000 hours in a year, you know, it's 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, 2 weeks vacation. That's kind of the norm. Okay, my time is worth $50 an hour. Now, is this graphic designer that I'm paying on Fiverr to do the thing, or is my marketing assistant who's going to post stuff? Can I have someone post stuff to social media for me for like $18 an hour? Right. Or $20 an hour? And if the answer is yes, then have them do that. Now you've made a $30 an hour difference if you take that time and you apply it to like your highest and best use. Correct. So leverage in the beginning is non-existent, but like the first little toehold that you get of success, like you've got to capitalize on that success and take your first point of leverage and then just keep going. And a lot of people get caught up. I hear plenty of agents that are like, I really like the paperwork. Like, dude, then be a fucking CPA. Right. If like you like pushing paper, you're in the wrong business. Like you want to be pushing strategy, you want to be pushing people, and you want to be helping them grow. Yeah. And if you're going to waste, like I look at every file as like, let's call it 10 hours of paperwork. Yeah. And if I do 50 deals a year, that's 500 hours. Out of a 2,000 hour year, I just spent 25% of it just pushing paper because I like it. Right. Feels good.
Because I like it. Well, because it's easy.
It's easy and it's finite. Yes. You're like, well, signature, defined, boom, right? Done. Yes.
This is what I got to do. They got to sign here, here, and here, and I got to do this and that. It's easier to say like job done than in either of our industries where job done is very difficult to define. It's really never impossible. Done, right? And you bring up a good point. You had mentioned there are a lot of agents and I think lenders who are focused on that end result. And the problem is if you focus on that end result, my experience has been that feeling of you being happy to collect the paycheck lasts this much time. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like you're like, it closed, great. The bigger joy, of course, is you've helped somebody buy a home. Mm-hmm. But that feel like, that feeling of I got paid and it feeling good is so small. Yeah. And if that's what you're relying on to keep yourself going, forget it. It's
Totally.
just not enough. So you've got to kind of love the process.
Yeah.
And to your point, if you fall in love with the process, you want to spend time doing the things you love in the process.
Yep.
Right? And where your time is most valuable. Same thing as a new lender. I had talked about this the first time when Justin and I sat down. I didn't have anything. Knew nobody, had no transactions. I knew the agent who sold us our home and one other real estate agent. That was it. And same thing, I had to come home to my wife and say like, hey, I'm going to make no money for like a good amount of time here. And like, hopefully in 6 months, I'll make a little bit of money. You know, we had 2 kids and the whole nine. And she was like, okay. But same as you said, like it forced me to make something happen quickly. And then I got to that point where I was like, why is it that I have a really good month and then a really bad month and a really good month and a really bad month from a production perspective? And it was because I was doing all the minutia on my own. I was chasing down conditions on our side, right? I'm doing all these things that, could I enlist somebody's help for less and spend my time pushing the business? And it does get scary because you're like, I'm going to spend that money and it's going to cost me something. But then once you do it, you're like, that was the best decision I could have ever made, was to enlist somebody's help to do the things that I don't need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's eye-opening once you get to that spot.
Well, and it eliminates the peaks and valleys.
Yep.
And it like vibrates them differently.
Yeah.
It's not peak, valley, peak,
Right.
valley. It's like peak, valley,
Yeah.
right? But that first point of leverage is massive pucker factor. Like it is like, oh my God. And I tell you what, I talk to agents all the time, like the points of leverage, the levers that you can pull right in the beginning. It's like, okay, transaction management, easy, do it. Get a good one, rely on them. You be out in the field, you be filling out a form and send it to them. They've got the contract going, right? Review it. They're going to send it for signatures. Saves a bunch of time. It's easy to do that. That next point where it's like, I'm going to bring on like an assistant.
And you're going to pay him.
I work with so many agents that have so many discussions in almost every time, 97% of the time, the discussion is the agent trying to figure out, how do I not pay them? How can I not pay this person to have them do a killer job for me? And it's like, dude, you got to pay, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of, we're 1099s, right? I'm a contractor. I hang my license at a brokerage. And then I get a commission, they keep a little bit of it and whatever the fee structure, and then I get the rest. And so we are ingrained to think that that's how I'm going to pay someone. When I win, they win. Right. When I lose, they lose, and they're just here with me. Well, most of the people that are looking for a true administrative job, they want to be paid like admins.
Yes.
If they wanted to be you, if they wanted to be out chasing the deal and like riding the waves and then crashing and getting tugged under, if they wanted that entrepreneurial ride, they'd be doing it themselves.
Yes.
So for the most part, people that want to be doing administrative work, you got to pay them like admins, which means, hey, I'm going to give you a salary.
Right. You're going to get paid every 2 weeks, no matter what happens.
Regardless of whether I'm getting paid or not.
Yep.
You're getting paid. It can be benefits. How about a 401k?
Right.
How about health insurance? Right. So like you have to structure it that way. One, because they want to be paid that way. Two, because the IRS wants them to be paid that way. Right. And this is a I'm not a licensed attorney, nor am I a CPA or play one on TV. But what you have to have discussions with your legal professionals and your accounting professionals when you come to leverage to go, hey, here's the role, here's how it's structured, here's what I'm looking for. Is this W-2 or 1099?
Yeah.
Because there are bright line tests to determine whether you're hiring a contractor or an employee. And if you do the wrong one, and either the employee quits and they sue you or file a complaint, you're in a lot of trouble. Or if the IRS finds out, you're in a lot of trouble. So most of the dance that agents are trying to do is like, well, I just want to pay them as 1099. Well, are you making them come at a certain time of day?
Do they have to be in the office at a certain hour?
At a certain hour. Are you instructing their day-to-day activity? Are you telling them what to do, when to do it? Like, they're probably a W-2. That's an employee. So you pay them as a 1099. You're setting yourself up for trouble. And quite frankly, if they're riding those waves, they're not going to be satisfied unless you're grooming this person to be an agent, right? That's a different role, and you're hiring a different person to try to get them to be an agent. But for straight administrative, you're typically not. You're typically not looking for an agent. You're looking for someone licensed to help you, but not an agent. So it's intense. That first point of leverage, and every 1 cent, every layer of leverage, every person I hire, every time that I go to do it, I go, man, here we go. Yeah. Like, what do I need to sacrifice is the first question. Yeah. And then I have to fight that and flip the script and go, it's not about sacrifice. It's about pushing forward. Okay, maybe I'm going to train this person for a month. So maybe for a month, I'm going to be paying them. I'm going to be a little less productive because I'm getting them up to speed. So maybe my income is going to dip a little bit. But every month thereafter that I have this person trained and operating and kicking ass, like, I'm going to go make more money. Yeah. If the idea was you hire an employee and you lose money on them because all you're doing is looking at what I pay them, no one would have a job. No. If companies lost money on the labor of their employees, everyone would be out of business. Yeah. The idea is you pay them $1, you make $1.25 on it. Right. And so there should be a fair exchange, but also one of the failings I find of real estate agents and probably lenders too. I mean, really any entrepreneur. I had a dude that runs a engineering consulting firm, and then a buddy of mine who's an attorney. Through different conversations, both of them were like, well, dude, I need to hire someone like what you have. Yeah. I don't know how to do it. I'm like, well, come in, let's talk about it. So I sat down with them and went through the whole thing. The failings that most people make is, one, they don't have a great job description. Yeah. So an employee doesn't know what they're getting into. Two, that job description does not translate into a training mechanism. And then three, there's no way to manage them. So if you're hiring someone, you're like, dude, I need help. Like, can you come in? I want you to just do some things. Yeah. But you're like, they don't know what they're doing. You're not properly training them. Yeah. And then you're not managing them. You are setting yourself up for that. Okay, what do I need to sacrifice in order to have this person? This person's making money and I'm not. Yeah. If you have a really consolidated approach to hiring and you have a very good job description, you have a very consolidated way to, like, literally transition that job description. Here are your 45 tasks that are written in the job description, boom, right in a spreadsheet for training, and then boom, right into a spreadsheet for tracking. Like, you can make that ramp up and that process of an employer or a contractor perceivably taking money, creating a net negative for you, and you can flip that to a positive really fast if you have an approach to it. And a lot of people don't. And a lot of people just kind of wing it, which is cool. Right. You got to learn.
Help. I'm drowning. I need somebody.
I need help.
And that's it. And then they get in and then they're like, person doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. You don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody's frustrated and disappointed. Yep. Yeah.
So dude, like, what have you done? You have training. Yeah. Right? You have coaches, you have systems. Yep. What have I done? Training, coaches, systems. Started out with mentorship at North & Co. Yeah. Right? I mean, I was working with Brian and Stephanie in the beginning and did a bunch of stuff with them to get myself ramped up. And then they're like, hey, you need to talk to Zanzibar, our coach. Did a group training program with him and then coached with him one-on-one. And then I've had various coaches for my career ever since. Different perspective, different ideas, different approaches. And then you get to take everything that you've learned, just like reading books, just like podcasts, and you just take, I really like that, I don't like that, I like this, I like that, and you put it together into your own way of doing it. And as long as it works for you and it's efficient, there's nothing wrong with it. But like, so many people, they're afraid to ask for mentorship. Yeah. They're afraid to pay for a coach. They don't know where to go for either. Yeah. You know, and I think mentorship in a sales game is a tough spot. Most people are like, if someone came to you that wasn't in your branch and was like, hey, dude, I'm getting going in this business, or I'm showing some promise, will you help me? Yeah. Your heart's going to say yes, and your head's going to go, dude, I don't have time to take away from my business to help you. So in the sales game, it's really hard to find someone that's going to help you who's successful enough to be able to like have some credibility in what they're telling you, but to take time away from their day to do it. And that's where I found myself in when I was a commercial insurance broker, like I got hired, and like the day I walked in the office manager was like, oh, so the guy that was supposed to be right over the top of you, he's not heading up employee benefits for the state anymore. He's heading it up nationally out of Atlanta. And the CEO of the office that hired you is no longer with the company. So here's your office, here's your phone, sell insurance. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't know what I was doing, and so I went to the guys that were in my group, and we're like, "Hey, what should I be doing?" And they're like, hey, do the thing,
make phone
call the phone, do the thing, tell them the stuff." And it's like, and they were generous with their time. Yeah. I'm making it sound worse than it was, but like at a certain point, they're like, "Dude, I got to be doing this." So like, I got to go. So I think it's very important when in your business, when you're in lending, when you're in real estate, when you're in any business where you're kind of on your own, to try to find people that are willing to help you.
Yeah.
And then if there's no one willing to help you, pay someone.
I think you're going to have to pay somebody most of the time.
Most of the time you have to.
You have to, even if it's somebody who's agreed to take the time and mentor you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in both of our cases, we had people who were willing to give their time and help grow you. And look, part of it is altruistic, part of it's selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the nature of it.
Yep.
Somebody's going to help me. I'm working at their branch or with their team.
Yep.
If I do better, they do better. If you produce more, the brokerage does better. But they're being generous with your time to help you. But at some point, if you really want to leverage that time, you're going to have to pay somebody. And
Totally.
I had coaches early. You had coaches early.
Yep.
And it helps accelerate how quickly you get better because you are paying somebody and they are receiving compensation to do that exact thing.
Yep.
They don't have to be thinking while you're talking to them like, oh man, like I got to make these phone calls. This guy won't stop talking. Like, no, they're engaged because you've hired them to do a job.
Yep.
So they're like, great, I can spend 100% of my energy here training, talking to this person about his business because that's what they are engaged to do.
Yep. Yep.
I also wanted to talk to you. You mentioned recently you've moved brokerages.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that. You were obviously, for those of you that don't know, very successful at North & Co.
Mm-hmm.
How many years were you the number one independent agent?
Top agent. That's
Top
the first year I got it. You wrote me a card. Top agent. Yeah, I love that. That was our joke. I think I was the number one independent agent there for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. I think it was there for 7 in all but my first year because I came mid-year. I was top independent agent. And independent means not having producing agents under you.
Yeah.
So anytime that I hired an agent, they were there to help me serve my clients.
Right.
Like what I was describing earlier. Hey, they're out showing the homes. I'm being strategic and working on other facets of the business and strategy. So yeah, I was at North & Co. for 6 or 7 years. Grew tremendously there. I mean, I give so much credit to the brokerage, so much credit to Brian North and Stephanie Gonzalez, and what they've built there really allowed me to go and learn and evolve dramatically. And it got to the point where I felt like, I'm getting tired, right? I feel like I'm doing it the same way. I'm kind of getting bored with the business. I was looking at other things to do. Last year was a hard year. My production wasn't that far off from where it was the year before, but I felt like I had to claw so much harder for it. And I'd also had, the year before my house burned down. So in August of 22, my house burned down. And so that sent me down like a 12-month, 13-month, 14-month process where I was like dealing with running a business, trying to raise, when the house burned down, Michael, my youngest was 7 months old, 6 months old, 7 months old. So it's like, okay, I need food and shelter for my family. And then it's like ashes are smoldering and I'm back in the office, wiping my tears and making calls and trying to sell houses, right? Yeah. But like, because I had to.
Yeah.
Right? So like I went through this whole I had this refocus on what was important. It's family. It's quality time. I'm watching, Hannah's my eldest, and she's a freshman in high school, and I'm like, man, I remember when she was Marty's age. Yeah. Like, and that went like that. I'm like, dude, I don't want to build. I built myself this nice little trap of this business where it kicks off enough money to provide us with the lifestyle we want, but the input necessary for that is like, man, it's just getting harder. I'm doing the same stuff, or I'm adding complexity. I'm spending more time doing it, not less. Like, I just kind of went through this process of, well, what am I doing? And I turned everything over. Brokerage, the way I'm running my business, the way I'm living my life, the way we're spending our money. Beth and I, like, literally the house burned down and we're like, well, fuck it. Let's burn everything down. Let's go. Yeah. What else we got? Yeah. What else can we do? Health, savings, investing, interactions with our kids, vacation goals, ultimate, goals in life. And so what came out of that whole discussion was there was a little crack and someone came and was like, hey, would you talk to our brokerage? Yeah. And I'll say it probably was Bobby Lee. He'll love it if he sees it. Bobby was like, hey, you should come to launch. Yeah. You should be here with us. And I was like, thank you. It means a lot. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that you would want me around. And but I'm not interested in moving brokerages. Like I'm comfortable here. This is family. Like I love it here. I'm just not interested. And he goes, well, will we take at least a meeting with Sean Zimmerman, the president? And I said, I'll never say no to a meeting. Yeah. So yeah, I'll go, but just tell him that I don't want to make a change. And I hung up the phone and I was like, literally discuss it with myself. I'm like, comfortable? I'm like, I'm not. Like I'm literally at the time in like total like turmoil with who I want to be when I grow up and what does my business look like. And I'm like, just kind of moved into our house and was settling in. We bought a house and remodeled it instead of rebuild the house that burned down. I'm like just trying to find my way. And so when I was like comfortable, I'm like, dude, you're uncomfortable with the way your business is going. Like still providing great value for clients and doing the thing. But I was just like, man, there's got to be a better way. And so I went and had that meeting and was like, I hadn't talked brokerage in years. And after that meeting, I was like, whoa, there's a whole world out there. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to look. Yeah. And so I started talking around, and I'd been talking to Kevin Kaufman and Fred Weaver at EXP for years. Yeah. 4 years ago, almost, dude, it was like January 14th. Yeah. I can scroll to my first text with Kevin. You had invited me. Yeah. This is when you were with Nova. Yep. You had invited me to be a panelist on stage at this big Nova event. Yeah. And like Kevin and Fred were up there. And it was one of those things like, we'd be asked a question, we'd answer it. And like Kevin would answer a question. I'd look down and I'm like, dude, like, yeah. And then like he would answer, or I'd answer a question. He'd be like, so at the end of it, like literally we were like, dude, we need to know each other. Yeah. And so Kevin and Fred have been at EXP for 5 or 6 years, and they've built a network of agents, what they call a downline. Yeah. They have almost 2,200 agents under them around the world. And what they do is they put on classes, they put on events. It's like all education. It's all like camaraderie. It's, hey, show up for this Zoom. We do this once a week. Show up for this mastermind. You have to be at a certain level to do these certain things. And so he just started inviting me to stuff. Never talked about the brokers, just started inviting me to stuff. And everything I went to with him, I would come out with notes. I would come out with like, whoa, like action plan. I traveled with them to Salt Lake City one time for an event that they put on. And one sentence that one of the presenters said, like literally changed the trajectory of my life. Like right there. I like went back to my hotel room, did some research on what I interpreted as to what he said, and literally changed. Like Beth and I started working with a financial coach right then. I set up a thing. Because like we were struggling with the balance of business and personal finance and how they interplay. My CPA couldn't help me. My financial advisor was like, hey, try a budget thing. And my friend like, this is a spreadsheet. And like it just wasn't working. And so I was like, this is the thing that's like hanging around my head like an anchor, which is what the speaker, Dustin Runyon, had said. And I was like, I got to crack the code of this business and personal finance thing. So like everything that I'd ever gone to with Kevin and Fred, I walked away with massive amounts of value. Yeah. And so as I was going down this brokerage journey, Kevin and I were overdue for lunch. We probably have lunch like every 6 months. And so we sat down for lunch and we're chatting a little bit. And I said, hey, I'm like, dude, will you talk to me about EXP? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, what do you mean? I was like me coming there. Yeah. Like, I'm opening the door, dude. Right. Tell me, why should I go? And he's like, oh, shit. Like, okay. I didn't expect this. But he was like, his answer is pretty simple. And it was something to the effect of like, dude, you get a lot of stuff like when you come to our things, right? Like you get a lot out of it. I was like, yeah. He's like, it's that, but like times 10.
Right. He's like, it's that all the time.
Yeah. But what's funny is like what attracted me to that, and I talked to a bunch of other brokerages, and it was down between Launch and EXP. And like EXP is a model that's very different than traditional brokerage. Right. It is multi-level marketing. Yeah. I'm talking about bringing agents on under me so that I can help them grow and make some money off of their growth. To your point, to our discussion earlier, just a couple minutes ago about like mentorship, like in the traditional brokerage model, there's no one there to mentor you except for the people that are higher up in the brokerage. Or if you join a team, that team lead is going to take 50, 30, 20, 10% of everything. Whereas the EXP model, when I really wrap my mind around it, what Kevin and Fred have created is a network of agents who are financially incentivized to help other agents grow. Yeah. So when I come on under Kevin and Fred, like they're not like out there producing real estate. Their entire world is building education and interplay and camaraderie for agents so that they can learn from each other and grow. Yeah. And so the way I plugged into their organization under a handful of agents who were doing like 2x, 3x the amount of business I'm doing. And they're like, talk to these guys. Like, let's help. They'll pull your business apart and help you rebuild it. And so a couple whiteboard sessions and discussions, and I was like, this is where I need to go. Like, that guy did 108 deals last year and took 22 vacations. That dude has 5 kids, did 155 deals a year, and is like, if I work more than 4 hours a day, I'm not real happy. Like, that's what I want. I want to be able to consolidate my time, focus my energy in a very productive manner to client success, and then devote the rest of my time in a very consolidated manner to familial success. Yeah. And to make sure I'm living a good life. And the EXP model, to me, creates, when it's run in its pure form, like, hey, it's a group of agents that are here to help each other grow. When I grow, the guys above me win. Right. And if I grow and they teach me a bunch of stuff, and then I help agents beneath me win, and they grow, and then they help, it literally is just this classic pyramid scheme, but it's a pyramid of purity. Like, it just, the good stuff keeps going down the line, and you help agents break through. You help agents grow out of whatever rut they were in. You help agents, you can see when the light bulb goes on. Yeah. Like, I've always mentored agents. I've always helped. I've always whiteboarded. I've always given my time because I enjoy doing it. Yeah. But now there is a financial incentive for me to do it. And it's not massive. Like, per agent, it's not a ton of money, amount. Right? It's so you have to be careful with it. Like, I'm not going to be your team lead. Right. I don't want to have a team. No. But dude, you can call me. Let's break something apart. You have a difficult situation in a transaction, or you want to restructure your business, or you want to hire. Right. Well, dude, come in. Let's whiteboard. Let me show you. Or let me send you my spreadsheets. Let me show you how this all works together. Now go. And then go teach another and another and another and another. So it creates a really good community of commonality and of upward and downward growth and knowledge exchange. And so to me, in making my change and deciding to go to EXP instead of Launch, which is with Compass, and I mean, they're a great company and great people, great culture. Compass has massive tools, but for me, I was like, when I think of myself 5 years in the future, if I went to Launch, if I went somewhere else, if I stayed at North & Co., when I look up, and I just had my 44th birthday, so when I look up in the mirror when I'm 50, am I going to be happy that I went a traditional route, or am I going to be happier that I gave the more non-traditional route a shot? I still get to do real estate and produce as much as I can produce and help as many clients as I can help, but I also get this other stream of income where if I have agents under me and they're producing, I'm making a little bit of money. So over the years, if I have 100 agents under me, that could be a really good amount of money just kind of coming in. That's okay, college tuition. Yeah. Right? That's vacation. Yep. That it just relieves a little bit of pressure. It allows me to help people. It allows them to help other people grow. And I was like, I want to take a run at that. And if a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it doesn't feel right, it's not what I thought it would, well, I'll just go back to traditional brokerage. And I'm going to go back to traditional brokerage, having a different looking and feeling business, having grown and learned from the guys that I came together with. So
I think that's a big advantage. You mentioned there were people who mentored you, but you didn't have to be on their team. But when you needed something, you had somebody who had seen that scenario before, or who could help you write a job description. Yep. Right? Or help you with a training schedule and how to monitor somebody's performance. Those are things you could do for an agent who joins EXP without them being on your team. Right. Hey, let's carve out an hour or two here to go through this. Yep. Great. Here you go. Wonderful. And they're off.
Go do it.
Right? Because they probably want to be an entrepreneur anyways. That's why they chose to be an agent. Right. But they need somebody I just need to figure this out. Right. Without spending a year hiring the wrong person. Yep. I just need a little help so I don't make that mistake, or hopefully don't make that mistake when I hire this person. Yep. Right? So it gives you both things, right? Yeah. You don't have to spend all your time on them, but you can provide value, same as somebody gave it to you, and now everybody's incentivized to do it. Yep. So
yeah, it is the way it was described by Chris Bowers, who I ultimately I joined right under him. So it was Fred Weaver, Kevin Kaufman, Dave Zaginski, and Chris Bowers. And Chris talks about the purity of the model for that point. He's like, dude, they're coming to you for help and guidance. You're giving the guidance. They're making more money, and they're creating a better work life for themselves, and you're making a little bit of money on them, and then it just propagates down and down and down. It is once I wrap my mind around the actual strength of the model, which is who are the agents you're associating with and what are you learning and what's the exchange? And it's not just downward. It's the information travels up and down that line.
Yeah.
Like I had a session, a whiteboard session where Dave and Chris were in my office, two guys right above me in our network of agents. And they were like, all right, what do you got? What do we want? I'm like, well, let me show you kind of what we do. I was writing on the whiteboard and this and that. And then they took their turn, and, Dave's the one that's done 150 deals or whatever and has 5 kids.
Yeah.
And he was pulling apart. We were looking at how to pay an assistant and structure and what to do. And, he was really breaking it apart and talking about this new kind of approach that he was using. And Chris had been using one of his other approaches that would cost a lot more money.
Yeah.
And Chris was like, wait, hold up. He's like, go back to that.
Yeah.
And he went over here, and Chris was like, dude, I gotta make some big changes. And it's like just that exchange. It's like, okay, Dave's teaching Chris something. They talk 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
But they're learning and continuing to grow together. It's like, an agent will hand something, hey, here's how I do it.
Yeah.
And then you go do it, and then you're like, well, and I added this and that to it. What do you think? Right? So it becomes this exchange of information, not just like, omnidirectional or one direction. It's like it's omnidirectional. It goes everywhere. So it's really cool. It's I'm just tapping in. I'm just really learning about it. But the model itself and what I've already gotten from it, it's been pretty extraordinary.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So shifting gears. Outside of work.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what you do when you're not being a real estate agent and stuff you enjoy. I mean, I know, but if somebody's watching this and meeting Trev for the first time, what's stuff outside of work that's fulfilling? What do you tell us about that?
Really, I mean, my focus outside of work is family. I love my kids. I love being a dad. It truly is it gives me my ultimate purpose in life.
Yeah.
And I love being a husband. Like, my wife is my best friend. So literally it's like I walk in the door, and I mean, the first thing, when I turn my car off, I can hear the door. It's like Marty or Mike are trying to get out. We always lock it. You hear him oftentimes Beth will help him unlock, or Marty will just come chugging out. He knows to wait until the car's off. Yeah. And it's like, Daddy, walking in and be like, you want to play tag? I always tell him, I go, let me put my running shoes on. I go put my Crocs on, put in sport mode, put the strap on.
Put the straps up.
And we go and we run and we play tag. And, so really it's family. People are like, hey, what are your hobbies? Dude, honestly, I don't whatever my family's doing. That's kind of
what we're doing.
I guess birthday parties and jump houses are my
volleyball, maybe a little volleyball here.
Attending volleyball tournaments is my hobby. But we love to travel. We love to get out. Beth and I we have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say that she's the hardest working person in my family.
Yeah.
She's up at 5 and she's on until 9 o'clock or whenever the last.
Till the kids are asleep.
So she and I make it a very we make sure that we go out. We make sure that we have time. We were up in Sedona this past weekend with a couple of other couples or cousins and their husbands, and we make sure we do that sort of stuff. So travel, you and I are part of the Men's Arts Council.
Yep.
Mac puts on a vintage car rally called the Copper State 1000. So I love cars.
Yep.
You and I are both more modern car guys.
Yes.
But I do love vintage cars. I mean, my first car was a 66 Mustang. So,
that's awesome.
Love that sort of stuff. But really, outside of work, outside of the office, it's family, it's friends, it's trying to experience things. We're much more into experiences than things. I like nice things, but I'm not all about chasing the next, fancy object. I want to see everything I can see on this planet. I want to experience everything I can. I want when I'm on my deathbed for my kids to be like, man, we had so much fun.
Yeah.
Not oh, well, when I turn 16, I got to, use BMW.
Right.
Or whatever. I want them to know that life is an adventure. And that's what we always try to do. We always try to, and that's in my vision statement, is to take as much as we can from life and adventure with the family. And while we have the kids too, I mean, I had a mutual friend of ours, someone was he was renewing his wedding vows in Vegas this last summer, and he invited a handful of us, And I said, dude, I have 4 more 4th of July with Hannah in the house. Like, I'll see you after that. Like, I'm gonna do 4th of July with the fam. Right?
Yeah.
So really, I mean, I'm kind of boring outside of the office because it's just, and I'm not boring in my family, but you know, I'm just like, hey, when I'm able to like walk out of the office and walk in the house, I just try to put the phone down and try to focus on the kids and see how school was and go to the stuff at the kids' school. I think that's so important for guys like you and me to actually
100%.
go, because it's way easier to sit in the office and be like, don't have time for it. Like, I literally have 17 more calls to make. I have emails. I da-da-da-da-da. Like, it's, I don't know if you're like me, but like when you walk out of the office, you're constantly deciding what you're going to walk out on not being done today.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because you have to give in to family. You have to give time. You have to invest in that as much, if not more, than your business. The business is there to support them.
Yeah.
But if you're not giving anything to them, what's the point? It's hollow at that point.
You had to work on that though, right? I mean, you had to work on saying, like, I'm dedicating this time to the family.
Yep.
I'm done with work for the day.
Yep.
I'm done with work for the evening, whatever it is.
Yep.
I know I did. Like, I had a really bad habit of walking into the house on the phone.
Yep.
Right? So we talk, I'm sure you probably use this. It's like when I'm in the car, sometimes it's windshield time. I can make a lot of phone calls.
Yep.
That's productive time.
Yep.
But I'd get home and then I'd still be on the call. And to your point, like, the kids come running up to see dad because dad's home.
Yeah, and you're like,
and your wife has been working with the kids all day.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh, I'm on the phone. Hold on.
Yep.
And that became a rule where I was like, okay, can't be on the phone when I walk in the door.
So what do you do?
So
when
there
you're
are
driving
times
home,
when I'm on the phone and then I get into the garage.
Yep.
And then I just sit in the car until I finish the conversation.
Yep.
Most of the time, I will tell people, like, hey, I just got home. I have a rule. I can't be on the phone when I get home. Is it all right if we finish this later?
Yep.
99 times out of 100, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I think there are people who respect you for saying that. And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't want to infringe on your time. Mm-hmm. And so they understand that. And certainly, like, all my family does. So even when I'm on the phone with, like, my brother or my sister or a friend, I'm like, hey, I got home. They know now. They're like, okay, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, see you later.
Right.
Yeah.
They know. And same thing for you. Like, I know after hours, your phone is on Do Not Disturb.
You got it.
And you're not going to be on the phone. And so, great.
Yep.
Like, they'll get back to me. Trevor will get back to me when he's back on.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
But for me, that wasn't natural. For me, it was work all the time.
It's totally unnatural.
And I had to stop to say, like, the whole point of me doing my own business is so that I can enjoy this time. I could coach Clay playing baseball.
Yep.
I could show up to every game. I can go to Katie's school for her art show, whatever it is.
Yep.
But it's easy to lose track of that, especially as you start to build business and you get that momentum.
Yep.
And I think that's something that you can also, of course, provide value to an agent on. Is like, you've got to set boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. When the reward is all yours, when the commission is all yours, it's easy to go, well, I just need to make one more call.
Yeah.
I need to just push this through. Hey, this, you know, it's 9 p.m. and a call's come through. It's important, right? Like, you know, my thing with the phone call in the car, you know, I don't have a long commute now, so it's like I can pop off a 7-minute call maybe. But sometimes it's like you got to make that call, right?
Yeah.
Or you're walking out of the office, you're still on the phone. People can hear when you get in the car and it connects to Bluetooth, and you know you can drop a line that you're heading home. But sometimes if I'm still on a call, I won't go in the garage because I know Marty's just gonna be there like chomping at the bit, waiting for the car to turn off. Like, to me, that's a tease. So I'll literally park down. I'll park down the street.
That's good.
You know, there's a spot right outside of Dan Cronin's house. He probably hears my car. Probably, oh, I guess he's still at the office. I know him well enough. But I'll just sit down the street and I'll wrap the call up so that when I enter my garage, like, it's all family time. And then, you know, to your point, years ago, when Beth and the girls moved in, I was Mr. Bachelor real estate agent. So, like, dude, if I'm sitting on my couch and the phone rings and it's 8:30 or 9 at night, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. Hey, what's up, Noah? Like, hey, man, like, thinking about buying a house. Let's do it, bro. You know? Like, I would just do it. Or, like, you know, every buzz of the phone, it's like, who's that? What's that? You know, I'd be at dinner with Beth, sitting at home or out, and my phone would vibrate in my pocket. And if I didn't answer it, it was like, who was that? What do they want? What am I missing out on? Is something like,
your mind is now here.
Spins out. Now I'm not engaged, right? And so, or I'd feel it. And my best joke is on my headstone, she wants to put Trevor, loving husband and father, got to make a call. Because I'll literally be like, I'll look at my phone and be like, got to make a call. And I'll bounce. Now that's limited now because I do, my phone at 7 p.m. goes on Do Not Disturb. and it doesn't turn back on until 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m., like, unless something, our business calls for things to be done right now sometimes, it's very rare we try to like systematize that sort of stuff out so we don't have this last minute crunch.
Yeah.
But if there's a last minute crunch or like someone's panicking or whatever, like, sure, I'm there.
Yep.
But in all other instances, like, I won't even know my phone rang.
Yeah.
Because it's on Do Not Disturb, and unless I proactively go in there and look, like, I wouldn't even know.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Helpful.
So wrapping up, is there something important that you want to say you feel like we haven't chatted about?
I don't think so, man. We covered a lot.
We did. We covered a lot.
Like we tend to do.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you for spending your time, because I am aware of how important your time is to you. And you know that I love you. And our relationship has grown beyond one that's professional. And I feel lucky to count you and Beth and your family as friends. And so thank you for this time. I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I do.
Thank you, man. I so appreciate you and friendship, and to have someone like you, not only professionally but personally. Like, dude, you were there. Like, when my house was burning down, like, you left the office and you cried with me.
Yeah.
Like, you were standing there in the yard with me. Like, there aren't too many people. Like, it was you, dude. There were a handful of other, like, you heard and you were like there, right? And there aren't too many people in life that are like that. So thank you, man. I love you.
Thank you, man. Love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's
Thanks,
it.
Justin.
Now I'm crying.
I know. Me too. Now I'm tearing up.